The hospital room carried a silence so heavy it could crush the strongest spirit, yet outside those sterile walls Atlanta was roaring like a city on fire. The monitors beeped steadily, fluorescent lights buzzed too bright, and the sheets tucked tightly around the bed pressed down like restraints. But none of those details mattered, because while doctors worked to stabilize her battered body, the streets worked with equal force to destabilize her name. On every gossip blog, every Twitter thread, every Instagram story, one name was shouted louder than the sirens that had carried her to the ER: Tamar Braxton. Bruised, bandaged, bloodied, and pointing her finger at two names that had always carried dangerous weight in the city: Yandy Smith and Mendeecees Harris. This didn't come out of nowhere. It wasn't a random blow-up that exploded from thin air. It was a storm that had been brewing slowly, its electricity humming beneath the surface for months, maybe years, until finally it struck. When Tamar broke her silence, it wasn't with confusion or hesitation, it wasn't with whispers into the void. It was with sharp words that sliced straight into reputations people thought were untouchable. For so long she had been branded as messy, dramatic, over the top, but this wasn't that version of her. This wasn't shade. This wasn't a staged feud. This was a woman with fractured bones, with teeth knocked out, with blood still drying on her skin, standing tall enough to say, Yandy Smith, Mendeecees Harris. They know what happened to me. The evening had begun harmlessly enough, at least on the surface. At dinner at Ruth's Chris, laughter bouncing across the table as Tamar clinked glasses with her longtime friend Funky Dineva. Instagram saw nothing but glow, smiling faces, perfect lighting, little video clips curated to prove she was still shining through the chaos. But those perfectly angled snapshots were smoke and mirrors. Because the moment Tamar walked into V12 Lounge, everything shifted. The fun slid into tension, and the night turned from lighthearted to lethal. Sitting in the shadows of that lounge was a man who had built his entire brand not on words, but on their absence: Mendeecees Harris. A man who had sat through countless reunions letting chaos swirl around him while he barely blinked. A man who cultivated silence like armor, who let other people swing, scream, and unravel while he stayed unmoved. But this night, his silence wasn't armor. It was gasoline. Eyewitnesses swore he leaned too close to Tamar, his hand brushing against hers, his lips moving just a little too near her ear. To the casual eye it didn't look innocent, it looked intimate. It looked like tension that had no business existing in public. And just as the air grew thick enough to cut, in walked the one woman who had always hovered over his life like a shadow, Yandy Smith. She didn't need to throw anything. She didn't need to scream. She didn't even need to speak. Her presence shifted the atmosphere. Witnesses swore you could feel her before you saw her, that the hush in the room, the DJ missing a beat, the stiffening shoulders all announced her before her heels even hit the floor. When her eyes locked across the lounge, the triangle everyone had whispered about but never dared speak openly was suddenly front and center. Tamar, Mendeecees, Yandy. What happened next spun into chaos so quickly that no two witnesses could tell it the same way, but all of them agreed on how it ended, with blood. Some swore Tamar laughed too loudly, a brittle sound trying to mask her unease. Others claimed Yandy approached with calmness. So sharp it was more terrifying than rage, her voice low but her stare sharp enough to slice glass. What no one denies is that words were exchanged. You got a problem? Tamar allegedly snapped, her voice cutting through the bass. Do I? Yandy replied, a polished smile masking a tone loaded with warning. Phones shot into the air. Security shifted but held back. And through it all, Mendeecees stayed seated, silent, watching. Then came the breaking point. You think you own him? Tamar allegedly hissed, and the words detonated like a bomb in the room. The next moments blurred. Some claimed a glass shattered, others said a table flipped, still others swore Tamar swung first. But in that chaos, one name echoed through the noise like thunder: Kesha. Cousin Kesha. For anyone who had followed Yandy's history, that name was heavy. Kesha wasn't just family. She was enforcement. She was the shadow who handled the dirty work so Yandy could keep her hands clean. Years ago, she had stormed reunion stages, throwing blows while Yandy sat poised and untouched. She was the living embodiment of Yandy's strategy: stay pristine while someone else does the damage. So when Tamar was found hours later bloodied, bruised, missing teeth, fans didn't hesitate to connect the dots. Tamar clashed with Yandy. Yandy doesn't swing. Kesha does. By sunrise, the whispers became headlines. And then came the words that turned rumor into fire. Tamar herself, posting from her hospital bed. Her face swollen, her voice shaking but firm. I almost died. I woke up in a pool of blood. My nose fractured. My teeth gone. I don't even remember what happened to me. At first, fans poured prayers and sympathy into her comments. But then came the questions. How do you lose 4 teeth and not remember? How do you fracture your nose without knowing how? To the public, this wasn't an accident. It was an ambush. And then Tamar lit the match. I didn't just fall. I was attacked. And I know exactly who was behind it. Yandy Smith. Mendeecees Harris. Her words exploded across timelines. They weren't subtweets. They weren't blind items. They were direct accusations, names spoken out loud with no hesitation. She described the closeness of Mendeecees, the arrival of Yandy, the chaos, the shoves, the hands pulling her. And she named the shadow. Don't let them lie to you. Kesha pulled up. I saw her. That confirmation set the internet ablaze. Suddenly Kesha wasn't a rumor, she was a villain in a first-hand account. Tamar framed Yandy as the queen who stays untouched, Kesha as the blade in the dark, and Mendeecees as the silent accomplice. And then she turned her fury toward the very man she had shared dinner with that night, Funky Dineva. She revealed that from her hospital bed, broken and bloody, she had texted him, told him about her teeth, about her face, about her confusion. And instead of supporting her, instead of standing beside her, he laughed. He posted jokes. He made parodies. He called her that lady. Not Tamar, she spat through swollen lips. Not friend. Not family. Just that lady. Those words flipped the scandal into something bigger than betrayal. It became a citywide indictment. Suddenly every name was burning: Yandy Smith, Mendeecees Harris, Cousin Kesha, Funky Dineva. And none of them looked innocent anymore. The moment Tamar's bloody hospital confession hit the internet, the balance shifted. Atlanta's streets buzzed. Louder than the ambulances, bloggers scrambled to post faster than their competition, group chats filled with theories, podcasts went live mid-sentence just to cover the chaos. For the first time in years, Tamar wasn't trending for messy antics or a dramatic outburst. She was trending because she had survived what looked like a setup, and she had named her attackers. The conversation wasn't "what happened" anymore, it was, "Did you hear what Tamar said?" She named Yandy. She said Mendeecees sat there. She swore Kesha pulled up. And just like that, her accusations weren't just stories, they were truth in the eyes of the public. The fallout was immediate, and it was merciless. By the second day, Yandy Smith's Instagram comments weren't just questions, they were indictments. Beneath her family photos and sponsored posts, fans weren't dropping prayer emojis anymore. They were calling her out with knife emojis, clown faces, and hashtags like #Kesha pulled up. Every smiling selfie became cross-examination. Where's your cousin, Yandy? If Tamar is lying, why don't you sue? Her silence, the same weapon that had protected her for years, was suddenly being wielded against her. And that silence was louder than any denial could have been. It didn't matter how perfectly she curated her captions, the audience had already decided. To them, silence was guilt in motion. Mendeecees Harris fared no better. For years, his quiet had been read as strategy, as strength, as proof that he was above the chaos of women screaming across VH1 reunion stages. But now, thanks to Tamar's hospital confession, that same silence looked sinister. TikTok was flooded with old clips of him sitting still while women lunged at each other, and now those clips weren't harmless, they were damning. Edits spliced his blank expression over Tamar's bruised face, and her words echoed in the background, "You left me to die." That line spread like wildfire, copy-pasted in tweets, stitched into TikToks, whispered on podcasts. Overnight, the narrative had shifted. Mendeecees wasn't stoic. He was complicit. The city's energy turned electric with theories. Blogs ran anonymous tips claiming Kesha had been seen at the lounge that night, others swore Mendeecees left with Tamar. Proof didn't matter, perception did. Memes carried more weight than articles. A side-by-side of Kesha storming a reunion stage years ago and Tamar's swollen face was captioned, "History repeats itself." Another meme showed Yandy's curated Instagram feed with the words, "She doesn't clap back, she claps silently." Each post sharpened the narrative. Each share burned it deeper into the public mind, and then there was Funky Dineva. His jokes, once seen as sharp and witty, suddenly looked like cruelty. When Tamar revealed the text she had sent him from her hospital bed, "I'm missing 4 teeth. My nose is broken. I don't even remember what happened." And fans compared it to the parody "Wanted" poster he posted hours later. The backlash was brutal. On TikTok, side-by-sides of his skit and her battered face went viral with captions like, "You laughed while she bled." His refusal to even call her by name, dismissing her as "that lady," became the nail in his coffin. The humor that had built his career now made him look like a traitor. As the story snowballed, celebrities began weighing in. Erica Mena posted cryptically, "Funny how silence always tells the truth." Fans instantly tied it to Yandy. K. Michelle went live, blunt as ever, "I believe Tamar. I've been there. These women play dirty." Even 50 Cent, always quick to jump on a trending scandal, reposted a meme about Kesha with laughing emojis, blasting the story beyond the love and hip-hop audience into mainstream chaos. The bigger the names that joined in, the harder it became to bury. Tamar's voice wasn't just trending anymore, it was echoing, and then she escalated. Sitting upright in her hospital bed, her face still swollen but her eyes sharp, she looked into her phone camera and said, "If they don't stop lying on me, I'll drop the videos." Those words detonated across the internet. Suddenly the scandal wasn't about bruises or missing teeth anymore. It was about receipts. Theories swirled. Did she have footage from inside the lounge? Did someone secretly record Kesha throwing the first punch? Was there video of Mendeecees sitting motionless as it happened? Fans didn't know what those videos showed, but they didn't need proof to believe she had them. In the court of public opinion, her threat alone was enough. And now, every time Yandy or Mendeecees stayed quiet, it wasn't interpreted as strategy. It was read as fear. Yandy finally broke her silence, but only barely. A black screen on her Instagram story with white letters, "Don't believe everything you hear. God fights my battles." 12 words. That was it. But the response was savage. "God doesn't fight your battles, Kesha does," one comment mocked. Translation, "Guilty," another fan wrote. Her cryptic statement didn't calm the fire, hit. Poured gasoline on it, and then came Tamar's retaliation. In a new video, her voice cracked but her words stabbed like knives. "I watched him sit there. I watched him let it happen. Mendeecees Harris, you didn't say a word. You didn't stop it. You didn't protect me. You left me to die." The internet froze, then erupted. That line was scripture. It looped endlessly on TikTok edits, it captioned memes, it was retweeted thousands of times. One tweet read, "Silent men are the most dangerous. Tamar Braxton just ripped the mask off Mendeecees Harris." Another viral post declared, "At least Yandy fights for what's hers. He just watches women bleed." Meanwhile, Kesha stayed invisible. No posts, no appearances, nothing. But her silence only made her presence bigger. Fans didn't need her to confirm anything. They already believed. To them, her absence was as loud as a confession. Her legend grew darker with every day she remained unseen. The memory of her storming that reunion years ago was replayed as proof of what Tamar had described. She didn't have to swing again, the world had already convicted her. Even funky Dineva couldn't laugh his way out anymore. Every skit was now labeled betrayal, every joke replayed like evidence. Bloggers who once aligned with him turned against him. "You don't joke about blood," one viral clip said. His audience began to splinter. The very armor of humor that had once protected him was now a knife turning back on him. Through it all, Tamar didn't retreat. She didn't back down. Every time she picked up her phone, her words landed like thunderclaps. With her face swollen, her body aching, her spirit burning, she transformed her hospital bed into a stage and her pain into a movement. Hashtags multiplied, hashtag Tamar tells the truth, hashtag Kesha pulled up, hashtag silent men are dangerous. She wasn't just trending, she was redefining the narrative, and the city of Atlanta mirrored the chaos. Clubs buzzed with whispers about what really went down. Podcasts stretched 15-minute incidents into 2-hour breakdowns. YouTubers pored over every frame of every video, dissecting expressions, matching timelines, hunting for clues. Former cast members from Love and Hip Hop dropped cryptic lines that only fueled the frenzy. Was this just another messy night spiraling out of control? Or was it a setup, a carefully orchestrated ambush designed to silence Tamar for good, for fans? The answer didn't matter. Her bruised face was already etched into their memory, and her voice had already branded names as guilty. Whether proof existed or not, reputations had been cracked wide open. Yandy Smith's polished image was bleeding. Mendeecees Harris's silence had turned poisonous. Kesha's legend had grown into something monstrous. Funky Dineva's humor had betrayed him. And Tamar Braxton, broken but unyielding, was no longer messy, she was fearless, because in the eyes of the streets, silence wasn't neutral anymore. Silence was guilt. Silence was complicity. Silence was proof. By the time a full week had passed, Atlanta wasn't just buzzing, it was boiling. The scandal had leapt from gossip blogs to national news outlets, from shady podcast studios to polished morning shows, from Instagram threads to barbershop debates. Everywhere you turned, people weren't just whispering about Tamar Braxton, they were dissecting her words like scripture, replaying her hospital videos as if each frame carried evidence. And asking the same question over and over, why won't Yandy Smith and Mendeecees Harris speak? Every day Tamar posted from her hospital bed, and every day the world leaned in closer. Her face was swollen, her teeth gone, her nose stitched, but her voice only grew sharper. She described again how Yandy entered the lounge like a storm, how Mendeecees leaned too close, how the chaos erupted, and how Kesha pulled up. Each retelling wasn't redundant, it was reinforcement. With every video she posted, her truth became more undeniable. Fans weren't just hearing her anymore. They were believing her. Meanwhile, Yandy's polished silence was collapsing. For years, she had survived scandals by curating family photos and preaching blessings, but now every picture she posted was dragged through the mud. Her children, her businesses, her partnerships, none of it shielded her. Every caption became a courtroom cross-examination. Where's your cousin, Yandy? Why did Tamar say your name? If you're innocent, why don't you sue? She could no longer separate her brand from the accusations, because every smiling photo looked staged, every prayer hand emoji looked false. Her silence, once admired as poise, now read as guilt carved into stone. For Mendeecees, the collapse cut even deeper. His silence had been his strategy, the thing that kept him safe while chaos swallowed others. But now, thanks to Tamar, his silence was the scandal. Clips of him sitting motionless at past reunions, letting women scream and fight around him, were replayed endlessly with captions like, "This is who Tamar warned us about." TikTok edits layered his blank stare over Tamar's swollen face. Her voice looping, "You left me to die." That one line destroyed years of image crafting. He wasn't stoic anymore. He was complicit. He wasn't above the drama anymore. He was the reason for it. And then there was Kesha. She didn't post. She didn't respond. She didn't show her face. But her absence was as loud as a confession. Fans didn't need proof. They already believed. The memory of her storming stages years ago was enough to convict her in the present. In the public court, Kesha wasn't missing. She was haunting. The silence of her absence became the loudest sound in the room. Funky Dineva couldn't recover either. His jokes, his parodies, his refusal to call Tamar by her name, everything turned against him. The screenshot of her hospital text, "I'm missing 4 teeth. My nose is broken. I don't even remember what happened," sat next to his parody. Videos on TikTok, captioned, "He laughed while she bled." Fans who once adored him now accused him of selling his soul for clicks, of protecting the wrong people, of choosing cruelty over compassion. No amount of humor could wash away the stain. As the days dragged on, the speculation about the videos grew wilder. Tamar's single threat, "If they don't stop lying on me, I'll drop the videos," had planted a seed the internet watered relentlessly. Did she have security footage? A hidden recording? A secret phone video of Kesha swinging? No one knew. But the more Yandy and Mendeecees stayed silent, the more people were sure the videos were real. The absence of denial became proof. The silence became evidence. Talk shows dissected it. Podcasts debated endlessly. YouTubers stretched it into 2-hour breakdowns with slow-motion freeze frames. Celebrities outside the love and hip-hop bubble began to weigh in, some siding with Tamar, others dismissing her, but none ignoring her. She had forced her bloody face into the center of culture, and now no one could look away. When Tamar whispered in one of her later videos, "I'm not scared of the truth. I'm scared of how far they'll go to hide it," the internet froze. Those words reframed everything. This wasn't gossip anymore. This wasn't messy entertainment. This was survival. Her tears slid down her cheeks, but her eyes burned with warning. She wasn't just accusing names anymore, she was indicting an entire system of silence that had protected them for years. Atlanta itself reflected the storm. Clubs gossiped about cover-ups. Blogs whispered about payoffs. Old grudges resurfaced as former cast members like Erica Mena and K. Michelle dropped cryptic lines that only stoked the fire. Some fans claimed Tamar was exaggerating, spinning her injuries into attention. Others swore she was finally exposing the rot that had been festering in the reality TV machine for years. But the split didn't matter. What mattered was that her bloodied face and trembling voice had already carved the story into the public imagination. The silence of the accused had already written the ending, and that was the haunting truth. Whether she ever released the videos or not, whether hard proof ever surfaced or the rumors stayed rumors, the damage was permanent. Yandy's pristine image was cracked beyond repair. Mendeecees' silence was no longer strength, it was betrayal. Kesha's shadow grew into a monster the public no longer needed to see to believe. Funky Dineva's laughter became evidence of treachery. And Tamar Braxton, battered but unbroken, became the symbol of what happens when silence collides with blood, because in Atlanta, silence doesn't erase the truth. Silence becomes the truth. And the truth was written in bruises, in broken teeth, in swollen eyes, and in the name that refused to disappear from every mouth, Tamar Braxton.